Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and today Blizzard slash WoWhead has kind of compiled the concluded tier sets for next season. So for those who aren't aware, Blizzard put out a couple of blue posts last week, about 7 days ago, 8 days ago, and they basically said, hey, vote on your favorite tier sets. And that tier set will be the tier set for your class in season 4, which will be the Fated season. So it worked in two ways. It had independent votes for both the transmog of the set and then a separate vote from that as the tier set. So you could have the appearance of season 2, but maybe the tier set bonus from season 3, and that's how it's gonna work. So in this video, I want to go over which tier sets came out favorable and won, and my general opinions on the bonus. The transmog, I don't care as much for. I hope they do recolors of the sets, because some I've, like for Monk, for example, I've collected all of them. So it'd be nice to see maybe like a recolor of some sort. But nonetheless, I'm going to just basically walk through this WoWhead post. It'll also be down in the description below. So first off, we have to get this out of the way. There are disclaimers. There wasn't a great way for Blizzard to indicate, at least on the front end, how votes were being how the voting process was being persuaded by each individual. So basically what was happening is you could technically vote multiple times. It was once per character, not per account. WoWhead does point this out, that this is an issue. So if Blizzard goes back and they realize that, oh, maybe like an extra, like there was like 3,000 fraudulent votes, it might shift which set bonus won. But I'm sure Blizzard will take a closer look at that. And then they point out another issue, which was like memeful and slash spiteful voting. This was mainly for a specific, group of people to vote for the worst set because they don't want a certain class to be good. They use an example for augmentation, though. If I'm not mistaken, you couldn't actually vote for season 1 augmentation since it didn't exist. But let's just say people wanted to troll, like, I don't know, Vengeance Demon Hunters and vote for like season 1 or season 2 because this class was a class that was reworked and their new tier set works, in conjunction with those reworks. So that's another problem. But with the disclaimers out of the way, let's walk through the votes and kind of my general opinion of them. And just for those who maybe aren't aware, this is mostly going to be focused around the tank tier sets. I don't really care too much about DPS. Not that I don't care about them, but I typically kind of play DPS off specs of tanks, but I don't play them frequently enough to really feel like I can give a valid opinion outside of maybe one being more enjoyable than the other. All right, anyways, let's dive in. So starting off with Blood DK, season 3 was the obvious winner in terms of transmog. This set is insanely cool looking. I'm glad this won. I really like the PvP elite sets, but they're all very, very crisp. I like the different kind of color variations you have, like white to blue to green to this like red and silver, kind of covering all the specs and also a little bit more variance. So pretty okay with that. But let's talk about Blood. So the Blood set that won actually was season 2, which personally big fan of. It seems like there was more NA votes for this one, where the EU to season 3 versus season 2 is a little bit closer. The season 3 tier set, while it is strong, Death Knights with their Firak legendary weapon, their damage isn't going to suffer as much. The big issue that Blood Death Knights have always had is their overall damage is typically a little bit weaker than other tanks, but right now they're right on par. If anything, they're pretty solid with the new legendary, and with how secondary stats scale, and them being a fairly heavy, like them having a lot of dot damage through their Blood Plague, they're only going to scale better with a higher item level and more main stat. So having the survivability and healing and health increase from Vampiric Blood just seems to be kind of the name of the game. So season 2 tier set is coming back. This, I was personally, out of the 3 set bonuses throughout Dragonflight, season 2 is by far my favorite. So just in case you forgot, Heartstrike and Blood Boil now deal 10% increased damage and have a 5% chance to grant Vampiric Blood for 5 seconds. This puts a little bit more stress on making sure you're hitting Blood Boil constantly and then Heartstrike spamming just to proc that Vampiric Blood. And then when that Vampiric Blood would proc, you would gain Vampiric Strength, giving you 10% strength for 5 seconds. It was possible to, extend this and double dip or have pretty high uptime on it, which was nice. And then, of course, this would have a lot of synergy with like the lower right-hand side of your talent tree. So overall, I'm pretty excited for the set bonus coming back. It might entice me to play my Death Knight in season 4. It's been on the back burner in terms of tank gameplay. I have been doing a Frost Death Knight 0 to Hero challenge, which is supposed to come out soon as the editor gets done with that. But yeah, I'm excited for this set. Moving on, we have Demon Hunter. Now, Demon Hunter is an interesting one. Their tier sets I don't really care for. Like, I don't like this tier set. Maybe if you compare it to old sets, it's okay. I just don't like the helm, if I'm being honest. The helm throws me off for some reason. I don't like this, like, fiery... I don't know. It makes your neck look thick, dude. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyways, this one is weird to talk about because Season 3 obviously won. It won kind of by a landslide out of all the people who were voting on it. But the problem with this class is that it was recently reworked, and it was reworked in such a way to be adapting to the tier set, or the tier set adapts to the new rework. So if you were voting on any of the older sets, you probably just didn't play with Season 3. And also, I don't know if they would revert Season 2, but coming into Season 3, they like took a nerf bat to the Season 2 tier set. Recrimination is now like 60 applications instead of the 20. Or 60 fragments consumed compared to 20. So it was just a gutted tier set anyways. And honestly, the Season 1 tier set was so bland, it didn't really offer any value. So this one continuing is just perfectly fine. Regardless of DH's strength right now in the meta, obviously, like, it's a very strong tank for obvious reasons. Outside of its utility, its damage is on par with most tanks. There are still some bugs with it which suck, like Sigil of Flame, for example, isn't counted as a tank ability, so it doesn't really generate threat when you use it. So DH already has that issue going on with it. But the playstyle is just so fun. I don't think DH has really seen like a solid rework. It's been playing the same for so long that now having like a more sigil-based gameplay feels really good, and you have a ton of cooldown reduction. That was something that DH has never really had, and even when they did have it in their talent tree when it was reworked in Dragonflight, it just never, it was so hard to get to and so hard to utilize. But with this tier set interacting with the new reworked class tree, just a super fun tank to play, and despite it being meta, I recommend anyone giving it a shot if you're interested, because it's really fun. All right, Druid. Season 2 won. I think all the Druid sets for all 3 raids sucked, so I guess pick your poison. This is the set. It is kind of Druid-y. I just think it looks really weird. Maybe it's the human model that's throwing me off, but I know on a Tauren it also looks pretty like this. The headpiece is the size of Orgrimmar. The set that won, if anyone could, by a million votes, was actually Season 2. Now, the Season 2 set, and for those who remember Season 2 since it wasn't too long ago, was the Year of the Bear. It was part of the God comp. Part of the reason it was part of the God comp was augmentation was broken, and the classes that they were playing with were also broken. Incarnation fit that damage profile for both Shadow Priest, Fire Mage, having a PI in the group on the Fire Mage, and having an Aug Evoker. So Guardian Druid was strong, but it didn't really bring much else that other tanks couldn't bring, outside of the fact that Incarn made you immortal for 30 seconds every 2 minutes, which allowed your DPS to pull around their 2-minute cooldowns. I have there's a lot of opinions I have about that I have shared on stream, but maybe not in a video. But Guardian Druid wasn't, I don't think, broken. It just fit in the peg that it needed to during the season. It was like the one tank that fit. So it just made sense to play it. Anyways, the Season 2 is when you take a damage, your Mangle and Thrash and Rage Generation are increased, and you basically have like a mini version of Stagger. Pretty good, fairly passive. And then Raise and Maul's damage is now increased by 20%, giving you more single target damage and AoE damage, actually. And then you just have a flat health increase. So these are 2 very powerful bonuses. One thing people need to keep in mind, though, is that Blood Frenzy was nerfed at the end of Season 2. Partly because of this tier set. I think what ended up happening is in large enough pools, you were already rage capping anyways. So this increased rage gen didn't even matter, because your Blood Frenzy was just rage capping you every other second. So it's not going to be as strong. I'm air quoting here. You can't see that, but I'm air quoting. But it's still going to be a very powerful set, very fun to play with, and kind of helps cover the issues that Guardian Druid has had, which is generally weaker rage generation and single target. So that's going to help here. Lower single target damage if not playing this specific single target focused build. And it also gives you a stagger for like magical damage, and it gives you increased health, which has synergy with Frenzied Regen, which is a health-based heal. All around, solid set. I'm glad it's coming back. Probably the best iteration of Bear that we've seen since the start of Dragonflight. I personally really like Shadowlands Bear, but that's just me. Maybe when they bring back Ravenous Frenzy, I'll go back to playing Guardian Druid. All right, moving down to, what's the next tank? Monk? Let's see. Mage, Monk. Here we go. The set that's coming back is the Season 1 set. Pretty cool, in my opinion. I have an issue with the neck. Honestly, the neck just kind of throws me off. Can I not zoom in here? Hello? There's like a weird neck thing where you can kind of see the skin of the player underneath. I wish they would fix that. But outside of that, pretty cool set. Not gonna complain too much about it. I think the Season 2 set was also really good, but you're gonna have these transmogs back if you didn't play Monk in Season 1. In terms of tier set, by a staggering lance, oh my god, I hate myself. By a fair margin, the Season 3 set won. Now, I know I've seen a lot of people complain that the Season 3 set won. People thought maybe some players didn't realize the strength of Season 2. Monk has had an issue with tuning in terms of Blizzard constantly nerfing our abilities around our tier set. So they're either going to buff up our spinning crank damage or nerf our rising sun kick damage or bolster our blackout kick damage. And they do this after they see tuning with tier sets, which gets kind of frustrating. What was really cool about the Season 2 tier set is it allowed brewmasters to do an absolute insane amount of damage, which is fun. It's always fun, especially with higher secondary stats and main stat with the effectiveness of stagger. Brewmasters become almost unkillable in a lot of scenarios, but they will always hit that, like, the upper echelon of keys. They're susceptible to one-shots more than any other tank, despite stagger being so high, because stagger was just going to ever stack up and will eventually kill you. Well, not kill you, but it'll put you in a range where a heavy tank buster or magical bolt from an enemy will finish you off. So while doing a lot of damage is fun, I think the Season 3 set is my preferred set. I voted for Season 3. Season 2 is nice, but I think the reason why it was good was because of some tuning around some of our abilities, which they've buffed and nerfed over the expansion. I think some people do forget how much the 2 set and 4 set for Season 3 actually do. Your Charred Dreams does a ton of damage and healing, and the additional pause stagger is pretty nice. And I think because it doesn't show up in logs, it's kind of easy to forget how insanely powerful this is, especially in Mythic Plus. I think the Season 3 set caters a little bit more to Mythic Plus than it does to Raid. But the argument is that also Season 2 set kind of sucked for Raid because of dodge. Anyways, what I liked most about the Season 3 set this season, it feels very, very similar to Keg of the Heavens back from Shadowlands, which basically, if you didn't play back then, Keg Smash healed you based on the damage it dealt. So this allowed things like Weapons of Order and Keg Smashing every 6 seconds to feel like you were death striking, basically, because you would restore a large portion of your health every few seconds. The Season 3 bonus in Dragonflight, basically, like Charred Dreams, it essentially gives you this really high amount of leech, which feels good whether you're playing Charred Passions or Dragonfire Brew. You're getting a pretty big burst of healing every 7 to 8 seconds from Breath of Fire and Dragonfire Brew, or you're just, every time you spinning crank kick, you're getting this ton of leech, and then of course Exploding Keg on top of all of that. I think the Season 3 set is ultimately better, just the way that it interacts with stagger and our damage taken profile in Mythic Plus specifically, but I understand why some people are upset about Season 2 losing, and losing by quite a big margin. Ultimately, I'm pretty happy with Season 3 winning out of the bunch. All right, next we have Protection Paladin. The Season 2 set won. I thought this was a very clean set from Aberrus. The Season 1 set, not super cool, and the Season 3 set was dog water, so pretty much there was only one realistic choice, and it won by over 5,000 votes. So for the tier set bonus, surprisingly, it looks like Season 1 won. And if you don't, this was so long ago, so I'm not surprised if people don't remember what it did. But here is the description. Avenger Shield grants you and your closest ally Alley of Light, increasing verse by 6% for 8 seconds. And then casting Hammer of Righteousness and Blessed Hammer increases your parry by 5% for 10 seconds. And extends the duration of Ally of the Light by 1 second. So let's take a little trip down memory lane, or let's walk through some of the problems that the other tier sets had and why they probably lost. Paladin has this issue where in Season 3, your tier set is pretty much all centered around, you could say judgment, but arguably it's around your consecration. And anything that has you dealing with your consecration is rough for some players, and I can understand an argument where you're like, well, it's a skill cap, like knowing when you should place it down and then trying to stay in as long as possible and not replacing it before you fully utilize the whole 12 or 14 seconds of consecration. I think it's 14 seconds. That's cool, but in a practical setting, sometimes it's you just can't humanly like play at the most optimal level all the time. And you have to think about how many people actually end up playing this class and enjoy playing Paladin. Paladin's easily one of the more popular tanks, especially in like the lower bracket of keys. And people want to be able to utilize their tier set and feel like they're contributing without having to min-max every time they log in. I'm mostly advocating for players who just don't really care to track their empowered consecration, but still want to do good damage or make sure they're holding threat, or to make sure that they're not working against their tier set. Like you feel like you're kind of, at least personally, I feel like I'm always battling like my tier set. Like I can't replace this consecration, but like I need to kite or I need to move or I already moved out of it. It just feels bad. Season 2, Heartfire, fairly weak for how the damage taken profile of the Paladin is fairly spiky, but once you're topped, you're mostly gaining like absorbs. You're not typically dipping too low too fast because of, block, high mastery, standing in consecration. That Heartfire more often than not overhealed, or it wasn't sufficient enough to feel like it's going to heal you for a lot, if that makes sense. It was suited for a class like Guardian Druid or Vengeance Demon Hunter or Brewmaster Monk. It's not really a tier set that's suited towards a class that primarily blocks and parries and then has like a massive off heal through both Lay on Hands and Word of Glory. So I think the Heartfire set just falls short from Season 2. So coming back to Season 1 set, this is a flat 6% damage increase, 3% damage reduction for you and an ally. It can go on multiple players if you have a ton of Grand Crusade procs, and you're extending that by casting your filler, which generates holy power. So all in all, I think generally speaking, if you're looking at Mythic Plus or pushing Mythic Plus, I think this is the least taxing set that has the most payoff. Yes, it's very boring. It requires you to basically hit your buttons and there isn't much of a skill cap, but I think for a final season, it's fun. It's more enjoyable to play the class than it is to play the tier set. If the class feels good to play, trying to cater to your tier set or fight against your own tier set just feels kind of bad. And I think this set winning, I didn't expect it. When I was looking earlier in the week when the votes first came out and I kind of saw that all even, I was like, there's no way Season 1 wins. I mean, I think they're one of the only Season 1s. I guess Windwalker Season 1, and I think Boomkin had Season 1 as well. But most classes are leaning towards Season 2 and 3. So to see Season 1 win is kind of unique. But anyways, I'm for this. I didn't vote on Paladin. If I did, I probably would have voted for Season 1. You can thank your other Paladin friends if you aren't a fan of this vote. All right, and now finally we have the Protection Warrior way at the bottom, and it's no secret that I think Season 2 with the tier set 1, very good, clean, dragon-themed tier sets. I'm big fan. I also really liked the Season 1. I think the Primordial Rock-looking armor set looked awesome, but I'm happy with this. And of course, the Season 3 set won, not by a large amount. I think Season 1 was also fairly popular, but the Season 4 set, or Season 3 set, becoming Season 4 is going to be fine. At this point, with high amount of haste and versatility, warriors feel fairly tanky. This, also rocking a high amount of leech, converts our damage into a fair bit of healing. We get 10% leech passive from our class tree, and then any extra that we add as enchantments or from tertiary stats. So basically the 4 set from Season 3, spending Rage has a chance to make your Shield Slam consume bleeds on the target, instantly dealing 40% of the remaining damage from deep wounds, and Rend, which is awesome, and then 100% of your Thunderous Roar, which is fairly fun because you get to Thunderous Roar and then burst with that damage if you're lucky. And on top of all of that, you get a damage reduction as a buff for a few seconds after consuming a bleed. So I personally really like this tier set. I think it works really well with the class. It bolsters its damage where it can, and it provides a DR that other sets in the past haven't really been that efficient of. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with the protection set. And that's pretty much it. Those are all of the winning tier sets. Now again, big disclaimer from the start, some of these votes could be fraudulent. Blizzard might come back and be like, we're going to just not do that. But if we can take this at face value with a very large grain of salt, these will be the bonuses for next season. So let me know which ones you guys are excited for and which ones are you surprised that won, and tell me how wrong I am about all of these sets in the comments below. Anyways, I'll be back very soon with a 0 to Hero challenge on the Frost Death Knight, and until then, I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.